Hey guys, how's it going? So I decided, since I'm not going to set up my studio for this, and I have a lot of personal things that are going on with, the move and a job and everything, I'm just not ready to do a video per se. But I'm going to go a little old school with this video. The way I used to make videos with just a still image and talking. It's been a while since I made a video like this, but I think this one's really important enough that I need to get it out as soon as possible. In fact, I'm a little late doing this. I've been wanting to make this video for quite some time, mostly because of things that are happening right now that I think are very important. But I want this to be a little bit evergreen, but I will talk about the context. So there's a couple of libertarians right now who Clinton Russell of Liberty Lockdown and Pete Quinones of Beyond the Wall podcast. They've been advocating recently for the state to ban private businesses to be able to refuse patrons based on their COVID status or lack thereof. Because of the COVID-19 lockdown that's going on at the time of this recording, there are states that are implementing vaccine passports. And there's also, I believe, I'm not exactly sure if this is what the law says because I haven't delved into it and I don't care and I'm not ever planning on going to Florida anytime soon. But I guess Ron DeSantis, the governor there, has been proposing, or there is a law that is in effect, I'm not sure what it is exactly, that would prevent business owners from asking patrons about their vaccine status, basically a vaccine passport ban. And there's kind of like two camps of libertarians. Like there are some people on the fringe, like people like me who've kind of seen this before, like, oh, you again. But there are like basically two camps of most of the libertarians that I see responding to this or being outraged by it. On one hand, there's a lot of them that are just kind of going along with it. And they're just kind of reciting like thought-terminating cliches, like enjoy your boxcar, presenting non-arguments, and just kind of going along with it because they see these people as some sort of authority figure, an authoritarian figure, I guess, but an authority figure who knows what they're talking about. Obviously, they got this really popular podcast. Obviously, they know what they're talking about. And they're telling people to, this little phrase, and it seems catchy. So I'm going to say it too. But what the purpose of that, even though it may not be what they were intending to use it for, it's a thought-terminating cliche. It's a phrase that you say that basically shuts down critical thought, and it's very common in a lot of. It's common in not just cults, but it's also common in other kinds of. Even more positive or good types of groups. But it is what it is, and it's not a good thing. It's always the healthy alternative to think rather than just recite things like, I don't know, cuck or racist or whatever. But anyways. But then the other camp is kind of along the lines of like, I don't understand why these libertarians that I looked up to are advocating these like authoritarian measures. Like, sure, this authoritarian measure is better than the other type of authoritarian measure that this is supposed to counteract, but it's still authoritarian. It's still like it's almost totalist. And so a lot of people are just kind of confused, like what the hell is going on? And a lot of them are just they're kind of new here. Welcome aboard. I welcome you. But I'm going to kind of break down what's happening because this is not the first time. I have been in libertarianism for about 16 years, and less than 2 of those of my formative libertarian years were very much of like a very small government. I've since kind of abandoned that for no government. So it took me a little bit longer than the 6 months that it usually takes the libertarian. But I've talked about my whole progress into that field, but whatever. Side note. So yeah, I've been around for 16 years. I've seen a lot of these waves come and go, and you kind of forget about them after a while. And you kind of forget about a lot of the figures too. And the two that kind of pop in my head, we'll get into in just a bit. So I've seen a lot of libertarians pop in, make a name for themselves, run like a popular podcast or YouTube channel or Twitter, for that matter, make a big name for themselves, get a lot of social media clout, and then they see something that they perceive as some sort of threat to their liberties or to themselves, and then rather than taking a rational approach and try to figure out, like, well, is there a libertarian solution to this, or is there a better solution to this? Take the immediate, like, knee-jerk one-step thought train to, well, obviously we have to get the government involved, and they may try to rationalize it for whatever reason, but this is very common, and I've seen it many times before. And they end up just kind of leaving altogether. The big one I think a lot of people are thinking of as I'm saying this, I'm sure, is probably Liberty Hangout, which is probably the biggest example. Most of the people who used to write for that website have long since left libertarianism and even that site, and now they're basically just, populist conservatives. There are also some people who have been around for a very long time who should know better, but they don't. And there's probably all kinds of reasons for that. We can speculate on what those are. We can also speculate who they are. I think the big one, I'm sure if you've been hanging around with me for quite a long time, you probably know who I'm thinking of. And I'm not going to say who, but if I did, it wouldn't be an argument. But usually when people get into libertarianism, they usually hear about the non-aggression principle. It's a 14-word phrase, right? Which it's kind of ironic that it's 14 words, but whatever. But there's like a 14-word phrase, that says, like, don't steal people and don't take their stuff. And people get really passionate about that, and they get like, this is really cool. And when you delve into like some of the things that will come about because of applying that consistently, you lead to a better world. Why wouldn't you want that? And you get really passionate about that. And there's a certain type of person who can get really passionate about that, really vocal about that, and attract a big audience. Great. Fantastic. And they're doing it for the right reasons because they're truly passionate about that, but they don't have a deeper understanding about it. They heard it from a YouTube video or they heard it from a podcast once, thought it was pretty cool, took the plunge and joined and just went about their day. A lot of these people haven't done some really deep analysis about what this is. And those types of people are pretty obvious once you have done reading and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that there's no use for those people. There's a lot of libertarians that I would put in that camp that I think are good principled libertarians, even though they may not completely understand it, but they add something very interesting to the libertarian conversation in terms of like humor and that sort of thing. But you got to be really careful with these people because a lot of them don't really have that deeper understanding. So as soon as something they perceive as being a threat comes along, they're very willing to just throw it away and go where their feelings go. But yeah, the thought terminating cliches are usually a great sign is when you need to jump ship and go somewhere else in terms of getting your philosophy from. So anyways, so don't hit people and don't take their stuff. Sounds like a very reasonable, really easy thing to understand, but it's a very deep and very interwoven philosophy. And it doesn't matter if you're going down the consequentialist route or the deontological route. It really doesn't matter. Both of these things are not something that you just kind of hear like a phrase and go, that sounds cool. I like that. I can now solve all the world's problems. No, these are very complex and very difficult to understand sometimes, especially when you get into some of the problems that come along the way. And this is why that if you present the trolley problem to 30 random libertarians, I mean, just random libertarians, just put every single libertarian, every person that identifies themselves as a libertarian, or even an anarchist libertarian for that matter, put their name in a fishbowl, on a piece of paper in a fishbowl, and dig out 30 names, and you ask them how to solve the trolley problem. Chances are you're going to get two very different answers. Some people are going to say pull the lever. Some people are going to say no, the lever's murder, and they're going to have 30 different explanations why. Because a lot of libertarians don't do the reading, which you can't expect everybody to do the reading. That's fine. But there's a lot of those types of people who don't know, who make a name for themselves, put themselves up as like a thought leader, and then veer off into authoritarianism. However, if you get people who have done the deep reading, and even though you'll still get two very different answers, you're going to get a pretty uniform reason why they came to those answers they did. And you're going to be like, okay, now we know who the deontologists and who the consequentialists are. Cool. But they're usually going to be very uniform because a lot of them have done the reading and have done it. You might get one or two off that are like, actually, no, I have a different philosophy about the trolley problem. That's entirely possible too. But either way. But the thing is like, even though it is complex and it is kind of thought provoking, and it can get into some very deep kind of esoteric stuff when you start getting into some really difficult questions around libertarianism. Then you can start getting into some, like, especially around reciprocity and stuff like that. But overall, the most important things are pretty easy to read. I'm going to give you some reading material at the end of this video, which should be pretty obvious what I'm going to recommend. But it's important for those who are maybe new here that you should probably check out one or two, if not both, of these books. Well, actually, there's only two. But anyways. But this is not something that's new. This happens all of the time. They come in waves. It's usually about every 4 or 5 years. We've seen it with topics like age of consent, where we've seen that's a whole Pandora's box I'm not even going to try to open. We've seen this with the Trump train and the alt-right. Now, I'm not saying that those are the same things. I'm just those happened at the same time. A lot of libertarians thought it was a libertarian position to have to erect a border wall. There was also a wave of libertarians who were making a big fuss about instituting anti-discrimination laws, and they left over that too. And if you challenged them on that, they would say things like, "Oh, you're a cuck. You just want the Democrats are going to take over," or conversely, like, "You're racist. Bake the damn cake." Like, a lot of these kind of thought-terminating cliches. They're not really there to present an argument. It's just there to own you and prevent them from actually having to analyze the position that they're being questioned on. So again, the thought-terminating cliches, usually a big red flag when those start coming out. But yeah, so that's pretty much it in terms of that. So this is not new. This is going to happen again. It's going to keep happening, and it's just the natural side. And it happens in every community that you can possibly imagine who might delve into things that are like libertarianism, maybe not even political. But they come and go. So just be aware. Just be aware that this is a thing. Now, I have seen people accuse Clint and of Peter being grifters. I don't think that's true. I just think they're very unprincipled. They're not very well read. They may say things that make them sound well read, but they're really not. But regardless, there are going to be times where these waves have happened, where there is a bit of grifting going on. And I just want to kind of put this in there just as a caveat to keep it evergreen, just in case something in the future ever happens along those lines, is that libertarians are the perfect mark. If you're a con man, there is no single greater group of people to rip off than libertarians. Let me explain why. Libertarians identify themselves as being very ethical people. because what it means to be a libertarian is basically don't hit people, don't take their stuff, don't rip people off, don't commit fraud, basically be a good person, and just expand that out as, public policy. So when you have that kind of mindset, your immediate reaction to seeing another libertarian is this person agrees with the philosophy that it's wrong to steal and it's wrong to harm them and it's wrong to take their property. It's wrong to do all that stuff. So obviously they're going to be a very trustful person, but there are a lot of people who understand that and go, wow, I could rip these people off. And the best part about it is, if there's any group of people who, after being ripped off, wouldn't call the cops, it's libertarians, because they're very skeptical of the state and the police and the mechanism for, to solve the problem of being ripped off is monopolized by the state. So they're going to be very hesitant to call the police. And they're also going to be very hesitant to take matters into their own hand, because they also know that the person who ripped them off is a libertarian, and chances are they might be armed as well. So it won't be just taking care of the problem by yourself. There might be some return fire. So you have those two things against it, but there's an extra layer on top of that. Is that usually these people who are ripping other people off in libertarianism, they also have a bunch of sycophants who follow them and who will come at you and try to tear you down. And they almost organize this stuff. I swear, it's happened to me. If you call them out, you will get wave after wave of people not just attacking you, but calling into question your own libertarianism as well. I mean, what have you ever done for liberty? This con man who just ripped you off of thousands of dollars on a bogus passport scam, he's done more for liberty. He's got 100 million subscribers on YouTube. You've got, what, not even 1,000. Shaking my head. What have you ever done for liberty? You'll get that shit. So it's a very three-pronged approach. And there's a lot of people who have realized this, seen other people do it in the libertarian community, and realized that these people are easy to rip off. Because we are. And we keep falling for it. And to this day, there are libertarians who have ripped people off in the orders of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in one case, millions of dollars, who nobody says anything. Nobody says anything. Because they know that if they speak out, they're going to get backlash. They know that if they call the cops, they're going to be some sort of a hypocrite. And on top of that, there's also just the general insult of just being a victim of a con game. That a lot of people, that most of the time, that people don't want to admit that they make a mistake. I just wanted to put that in there because that's really important for a lot of libertarians to understand. So anyways, what can you do? When it comes to libertarians kind of veering off the path of liberty, the best thing you can do is basically just call them out. And you don't have to be hostile. You don't have to be very confrontational. The best thing to do is apply a little bit of pressure. It's also important to call them out too. But I think applying a little bit of pressure might be a little bit more of a better way of handling it, even though that's not in my nature. But to challenge them to a debate, if you can, if they accept you, if they'll accept a debate with you, great. Usually this will make them do one of two things. It'll either make them stand their ground and realize that maybe libertarianism is not for them, and they'll move along. Great. We don't need the dead weight. Bye, Felicia. But a lot of times, most of the time, I've noticed, and I'm not going to say names, but I have seen people look like they're making the they're going down the train of maybe I was wrong about this. Maybe I was listening to someone who was kind of dumb. You're right. It's just basically just have a conversation with them and challenge them. And if they start using thought terminating cliches, call them out on it. Say that is a thought terminating cliche. Please present an argument against what I just said and not just throw out a tagline. Please think about the position that you're having. And if you feel challenged, take a step back, breathe, think about what you said, and then we can have a civil discussion. But there's always going to be like these fly-by-night libertarians. I think Stephan Kinsella has been calling them the Wayfair libertarians. That's a pretty accurate term. They're going to slip into your podcast feed. They're going to slip into your Twitter. And not to say that they're all going to be bad. In terms of not understanding the philosophy, there's a lot of great, like I said, there's a lot of great podcasts out there, which I know these people are not very well read, but I know they're going to be, I don't even know if they're going to be consistent, but they produce content in a very different way that's very receptive. Which is good, but you should need to be aware that should not be surprised when these people decide that, hey, I really don't like the idea of a racist business owner. It's like, well, you know what? I don't either, but I'm not going to shove a gun down their face until they think my way. But just always be aware that that's going to be a thing, and moving forward, just try to get yourself educated a little bit better. And in terms of the grifter, just be very skeptical about any libertarian that tries to sell you something. Be very skeptical. And by the way, this comes from someone who actually has sold stuff to libertarians before, and I have seen, because I used to sell. Actually, I still have some. I used to sell libertarian-themed Cards Against Humanity expansion packs, which I'm legally not allowed to sell anymore because of a DMCA. Yeah, Creative Commons, my ass. But I had seen people who were skeptical about my Indiegogo campaign, and they were like, I'm going to wait until people actually get their stuff before I actually order one. And I actually responded to a lot of those people, and I was like, awesome. Like, cool. Let me know when people get their stuff. Let me know, because I'll be here and I'll have extras. So you're good to go. And I fulfilled my obligations, and everybody got what they promised they were going to get. Even though we didn't make it to the big goal, everybody did get what they were pledged to with that level, and everybody was happy, except for one lady who I actually skipped over. She sent me an email, and I was like, oh crap, and I hooked her up for the mistake. But and then a lot of people were like, okay, I've seen you send out your stuff. I know that's legitimate now. Great. But either way, so I'm going to recommend 2 books, and these are going to be very important to kind of understanding and having a deeper understanding, so that when these kind of problems do arise or these threats perceive themselves to you, you'll have a better understanding of where to go from there, or to even maybe come to a rational reason why libertarianism is wrong. I'm very much of the opinion that I could be completely wrong about libertarianism, even though I have not found a reason why that's true. So libertarian gang all the way. But at least you'll have a better understanding of it and a better reason why, if you want to leave. But you'll also have a better understanding of this stuff when problems come your way, and you'll have a better, more principled stand on a lot of these issues. So the first one I'm going to give, it's okay. It's pretty good. It's not my cup of tea in libertarian ethics, but I'm going to recommend it because probably most of you are of that ilk, and that is the Ethics of Liberty, which is a good book. I'm just talking shit, because obviously the better answer is going to be The Machinery of Freedom by David D. Friedman. I'm going to post a couple links in the description box where you can get copies of these books. I highly recommend that you read both. See which one you like best. But either one of these books will send you down the right path to understanding what this means to be libertarian, what the ethics mean to be, what they actually are saying, and what to think when authoritarians come into power or a perceived threat comes your way, and how to make the principled approach, because the principled approach is going to be the right approach. It's not going to be the easy answer. And we could say that the easy answer, and we'll bring this a little bit back topical, even though I want this video to be evergreen, but in the example of banning vaccine passports, it may seem like that's the really easy answer to go down, but when you think about and you have an understanding of how the state operates and how the ethics works, you quickly realize that the state is going to use that as a precedent for actions that are going to harm you later. Because every single time a lot of these, what seems like pretty innocuous laws come about, they use that as a justification for the law that's going to come after you next. Sure, the barbs may be pointing towards Mexico on the border wall, but it's not that hard to install barbs pointing the other way to keep you in when shit gets ugly. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. Again, highly recommend you check out The Machinery of Freedom by David D. Friedman, and to a lesser extent, The Ethics of Liberty by Murray Rothbard. Just great books, but obviously the David D. Friedman's book is a little bit better, just a teeny smidge better. Anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Worms, Hail Satan, Hail Mephi, all that shit. You know what I'm about. Worms.